Hope everyone is blessed and doing well on this Wednesday evening for Bible study. Our topic for this evening is Daniel the prophet. Daniel the prophet. And as well as creating this live, I've also created an animated video for Daniel the prophet, and I'll be posting that as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, when you come in the room, please type in your name and the city that you are watching from. And our topic for this evening is Daniel the prophet. Daniel's name means God is my judge in Hebrew. Daniel was a righteous man and of priestly lineage. He lived about between 620 and 538 BC. He was carried off into Babylon in 605, BC by King Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrian. And then later he still lived there when, by King Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian. He was also living when the Assyrians took over, then next the Medes, and then the Persians. So he lived through three different dictators and still managed to survive. In spite of the captivity of the Jews, Daniel enjoyed the highest office of state while in Babylon, but he was always true to Jerusalem and he was true to his God. His enemies under the Persian monarch got a penal law passed against anyone who asked to petition any god or man for 30 days except for the Persian king. But Daniel continued to be true to the true and living God. His windows being opened in his chamber towards Jerusalem, he knelt down 3 times a day and he prayed and gave thanks to God each time before the edict was even after the edict was passed. You can read about Daniel also in Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 14, also in chapter 14, verse 20, and in chapter 28, verse 3. It mentions Daniel by name. There was something striking and very similar between the life of Daniel and the life of Jacob's son, Joseph. Both of them prospered in a foreign land after interpreting dreams for their rulers, and both were elevated to high offices as a result of their faithfulness to God. After Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, besieged Jerusalem, he chose noble men from Israel's royal households who were handsome and showed high aptitude for learning to be trained in the ways of the Babylonians. After 3 years of training, they were put into the king's service, found in Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. Daniel, who was named, was changed to Belshazzar in Babylon. Also, 3 of his countrymen were chosen and given new names as well. We know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The Babylonians also gave them these new names to try to disassociate them from their Hebrew roots and to assimilate them into Babylonian culture. Daniel and his comrades proved to be the wisest of all the trainees, and at the end of their training, they entered into the service of King Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel's first sign of faithfulness to God was when he and his 3 friends rejected to eat the rich food and the wine of the king's table because they deemed it as defilement, and they became vegetarians. As their health improved, they were permitted to continue on their chosen diet. In their education, the foreign men from Judah became knowledgeable of all Babylonian matters, and Daniel was given the ability to understand dreams and visions discussed in Daniel chapter 1, verse 17. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar was troubled with a dream that he could not interpret. Beyond interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar commanded his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to describe his dream. These men were willing to try to interpret the dream if Nebuchadnezzar first told them what it was, but they said that revealing the dream itself was impossible. For any human being, of course. The king decreed that all the wise men, including Daniel and his companions, must be put to death. So Nebuchadnezzar was tripping. He was having a hard time. He didn't have any peace, and he was upset that no one could interpret this dream. However, Daniel sought God in prayer, and the mystery of the king's dream was revealed to Daniel, and he was taken to the king to interpret it. Daniel immediately attributed his ability to interpret dreams to the one true God, found in Daniel chapter 2, verse 28. The key feature of the dream was that one day there would be a kingdom set up by God that would last forever, and that God's kingdom would destroy all previous man-made kingdoms, found in Daniel chapter 2, verses 44 through 45. For his wisdom, Daniel was honored by King Nebuchadnezzar and placed in authority over all the wise men of Babylon. At Daniel's request, his 3 countrymen were also placed in positions of high authority as administrators in Babylon. Later, King Nebuchadnezzar had another dream, and again Daniel was able to interpret it. The king acknowledged that Daniel had the spirit of his holy God within him, found in Daniel chapter 4, verse 9. Daniel's interpretation of the dream was correct, and after experiencing a period of insanity, Nebuchadnezzar was restored to health, and he praised and honored Daniel's God as the Most High God, found in Daniel chapter 4, verses 34 through 37. So, Nebuchadnezzar's son, Belshazzar, became the new king, and during a banquet he ordered the gold and silver goblets that had been stolen from the holy temple in Jerusalem to be brought out for use. In response to the defilement of such holy items, Belshazzar sees a hand writing on the wall. His astrologers were unable to assist him in the translation, and so Daniel was called upon to interpret the writing, found in Daniel chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. As a reward for interpreting the writing, Daniel was promoted by King Belshazzar to the 3rd highest position in Babylon's kingdom. That night, as Daniel had prophesied, the king was slain in battle, and his kingdom was taken over by the Persian Cyrus the Great, and Darius the Mede was made king. Under the new ruler, Daniel excelled in his duties and was administrator to such a degree that King Darius was contemplating making him head of all the kingdom, found in Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. This infuriated the other administrators so much that they wanted to bring Daniel down. So they could find no wrongdoing in Daniel on his part. So they focused on the matter of Daniel's religious beliefs and used flattery to coax Darius into issuing a decree which for which would forbid prayer to any god other than the king for the next 30 days. The penalty for disobedience, that person would be thrown into the den of lions. Of course, we know that Daniel disobeyed the edict and continued to pray openly to God. Daniel made no attempt to hide his activity. He had been seen praying and then was arrested. With much regret, the king gave the order for Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den, but not without a prayer that Daniel's God would rescue him. It found in Daniel chapter 6, verse 16. The next day, when Daniel was found alive and well, he was told, and he told the king that God had sent an angel to shut the lion's mouth, and so that he remained unharmed. The miracle resulted in King Darius sending out a decree that all his subjects were to worship the God of Daniel, and Daniel continued to prosper throughout King Darius's reign. So he had unlimited favor by the fact that he did not deny God. An angel was sent to protect him, and he was given even greater favor and prosperity because of his faithfulness. Now, Daniel is well known for the prophetic dreams and visions God gave him, and he recorded them in his book that's named after him. Daniel's prophecies cover a broad range of human history as he predicts the rise and fall of the Greeks, the Roman empires, and the rise of a powerful king who will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods, found in Daniel chapter 11, verse 36. Daniel's 70-week prophecies spoke of the Messiah who would be killed, found in Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 through 27. We saw this prophecy fulfilled in Jesus Christ. The remainder of the prophecies of the 70 weeks will be fulfilled in the end times. And Daniel had other prophetic visions as well. And the understanding of these prophecies is important to eschatology. Daniel exercised great integrity, and in doing so, he received the respect and affection of the powerful rulers he served. However, his honesty and loyalty to his master never leaned him to compromise his faith in the one true living God. Rather than being an obstacle to his success, Daniel's continual devotion to God brought him in the administration of unbelievers' circles. When delivering his interpretations, he was quick to give God the credit for his ability to do so. Daniel's integrity as a man of God gained him favor in the secular world, yet he refused to compromise his faith in God. Even under intimidation of kings and rulers, Daniel remained steadfast in his commitment to the Lord God. So Daniel teaches us that no matter whom we're dealing with, no matter what their status, we are to treat them with compassion. See how concerned he was when dealing with the interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's second dream, especially when God had caused him to go insane for a short period of time, and then he was restored back to leadership. As Christians, we are called to obey our rulers and those who have authority over us, but to always keep God in his place, treating them with respect and compassion. However, as we see through Daniel's example, obeying God's law must always take precedence over obeying men. And To confirm this, we find it in Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 7, and Acts chapter 5, verse 29. As a result of his devotion, Daniel found favor with man and with God, found in Daniel chapter 9, verses 20 through 23. Notice also in those verses what the angel Gabriel told Daniel about how swiftly the answer to his prayers was dispatched. This shows us how ready the Lord is to hear our prayers for his people. Daniel's strength lied in his devotion to prayer and is a lesson for all of us that no matter how bad the times are, that we are to devote ourselves daily to God in prayer. I know this lesson is real short and sweet, but I really wanted to cover the basis of who Daniel is. I didn't want to go in depth into the 70 weeks because it really ties into the book of Revelation, and it's very lengthy. It's very weighted. So I ask you to, in your spare time, to read the entire book of Daniel, and to the future events that are going to come in the end times. And I also did a video in length about the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, and you can find those on my website at youre-facilitator.com. That's youre-facilitator.com on my e-Bible study page. So if you have any questions or any concerns, you can also go to my website, youre-facilitator.com, and scroll down to the bottom of the page, leave your name, your email, and type your questions or your concerns in there, and I'll be glad to answer them at my earliest convenience. So I want to thank you for watching on tonight. Again, type in your name and the city that you're watching from in the replay, because I would love to be connected with you and to you. I want to speak blessings and peace to you on this evening, and thank you for watching. I ask you to please like and share this video with your friends, with your family, and with your mom and them. Blessings and peace. Good night.